Hey guys, it's Zach here. I wanted to share a little insight I had today about the general idea of how you can learn skills, most skills that are physical in nature, that require physical movements, whether it's sport, exercise, um, anything to do with the voice, anything to do with accuracy generally, if we're talking about drawing a weapon in martial arts, for example. And there's two basic things, and this can apply to other forms of skills as well, but there are some skills where one rule applies and not the other. So the two rules are you need to practice, well, obviously you need to practice, but you need to practice frequently and you need to practice slowly, slower than the skill you're trying to achieve. So I had an experience earlier this evening in which I was at my Toastmasters meeting, and there was a guy who was there who gave a speech. It was our year-end meeting, and he was a guest speaker, and he was someone who has recently, after 18 years of having a speech impediment, gotten over his speech impediment, and he did so by staying for a month at a place in Toronto where he did intensive training, 8 hours a day, working on his voice and the way he talked. And his speech was great. He sounded normal, but he showed us a video of himself talking, and this was him talking just regularly, one-on-one with someone. It wasn't like him giving a speech and he was stuttering, but he was stuttering just in normal conversation, and it was really heartwarming to see the drastic change he created in his life from having gone to this specialized training in Toronto, where there was a school that did that. And at the end, I'm not going to go into the details of the speech because that was sort of off topic of what I'm talking about here. But someone asked him what it looks like to do these exercises, because he talked about he has to do an hour of work every day to maintain, at least for a long period of time, to maintain his ability to speak fluently without falling back on his old habits. So he basically learned to talk this way, to have the stutter for 18 years. He's 19 now and has been doing much better. So when he said what he does, this is what reminded me of some other things that I'd grown up doing when I was learning different skills from different things that I was studying. So without going into all the details he talked about, there's one of the exercises he does every day that really stuck into my mind. And he spends 5 minutes in 4 chunks doing reading words in a specific way. So he used the example of the word every. He'll take that, he'll actually read it like a passage or something, like a paragraph, but he'll read every syllable in 2-second long, drawn out for 2 seconds long. And he'll do that for 5 minutes. So it would sound like every, and then he'd go on to the next word. I don't know if that's exactly he does it, but that's roughly what he said when he was describing this. And he says after 5 minutes of reading this passage, he'll either read the next passage or reread that passage and do a second for each sort of syllable. So it's a little shorter, it's more condensed. And he slowly speeds it up in 5-minute increments of practicing it at a set speed. So then he does that till you're just reading it normally. And that helps him maintain the ability to speak fluently without stuttering. Now, if you wanted to, you could even take that a step further, and I'm just thinking of this at the moment. If you wanted to become a auctioneer, how would you learn to speak that quickly and that accurately? You just learn what it is you need to say in, say, a 1-minute period, and you'd practice it slowly, at probably normal speed if you're looking to speed it up, and then you gradually increase it. And it's a very step-by-step logical way that you can do that. When we're talking about other skills, this is what it reminded me of. Sort of the first point in my life where I learned this skill and how to apply it to something I was learning was when I was taking drum lessons, and I studied drums from when I was about 12 till 18 or 19. I played very regularly, with increasing the amount of time I played each day until I was almost a full-time drummer when I decided to basically drop it. when I didn't want to go to school for it, which I've been planning to do. But any rudiment or anything that I'd practice, although I was hesitant to do this at first, in time I learned this is the optimal way to learn something, is to play it really slowly. So single stroke roll. Literally, you want to have the exact proper motion, and when you play it extremely slow, so instead of trying to do a fast drum roll, it's just like da, 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 da. If I had a drum, actually I do have some drumsticks. I'll be right back. I'm not going to pause the video because I don't want to have to edit it. And when I would be learning, it would be learning the whole motion of the hand and getting the exact ergonomical alignment and way that the fingers work as it's coming down, and an exact proper placement of the thumb, as opposed to just be like someone like, if you were just to pick up drumsticks and were told to play fast, you'd probably be like, and your whole body would be tense, there wouldn't be any fluidity. So to learn the fluidity and be able to play it even faster than someone who just picked up the sticks and tried to wail on the drums, you'd learn the motion that would give you the fastest result, and you get that muscle memory imprint. In the guy's voice instance, it was sort of a voice imprint that allows him to speak fluently, as opposed to holding on to the bad habits that he had developed growing up. So you relearn or reteach your muscles to function in a way in which you just start speeding it up over time. And you could do it the same way. You do like a set amount of time, you play it at this speed, and you probably have a metronome that you'd be playing it to, so that you would be playing it on beat as well, and you learn to keep beat better. So I took that, and over the period of time that I was learning to drum, you can apply that to different limbs, to different patterns that you're learning. It doesn't have to just be a single stroke roll, it could be any other drum pattern. When you play it extremely slow and then gradually speed it up, not even in one session, you can spend a month playing it extremely slow and precisely. And this is even more important when you're playing jazz. Don't want to get too heavily into the drumming ideas here, because I apply this concept to other things later on in life. When I started studying bagua, which I did for 2 years ago, up until 2 years ago, and I've recently begun sort of doing it again and wanting to get back into that. A huge emphasis, because it's an internal martial art, on doing things extremely slowly so that you get the exact precise alignment with your body, so that, as opposed to, you know, if you were doing a hard martial art where you're learning to punch with great force, you're not as focused on the exact alignment of your body. But if you had a posture that you held in the exact way that at this angle, you know, if you teach your body to always move to this angle, that gives you the most ability to hold your arm straight. If it's straight, it breaks the what they call a sink. And there's sort of an engineering idea behind this. I'm not going to get into that, because again, that's getting too specific into the art itself and not focusing on the concept, which I'm trying to do in the video here. But you do these things extremely slowly, and then very gradually, over a long period of time, start to speed them up. Then you have the skills and imagery and other things that you're incorporating into that skill at the slow, precise movement, and you can condense it and speed it up, so that when you do have it at that full speed, it's not messy and reckless. It's extremely precise. Other things that I've heard of people using for this is people who are fast drawers of a handgun. This is what they do in the Old West, I'm assuming, from what I've heard of people who are really fast at drawing a weapon. To be able to basically pull it out and fire in like 0.0001 seconds, they do it at extremely slow speeds, because they want to have it exactly so that, you know, their hand might come to lift up their shirt, the hand comes in, hooks into the trigger and holster. Maybe this hand unbuttons if there's a buckle, and then you unholster it, and then you're coming forward, maybe undoing the safety with the left hand, and then firing. So to be able to do all that precisely without fumbling, you have to practice it extremely slow and then speed it up slowly over time. And people that do that know that once you learn to do that, You don't want to suddenly be carrying your gun in a chest holster because you've been practicing it with on your right hip or on your left hip. You don't want to be doing that if you're used to practicing it there. You can always learn to draw it from different places quickly, but then that's more skill sets that takes more time to learn and practice. So I was trying to think of other examples of this and other ways it can be applied, and I think you guys can kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about here. And if you have some skill that you do as a hobby or you need to do for career or anything like that, you can kind of guess how that could be applied to it. And it can be applied basically to any skill, any art form. It's generally art forms that we might think of applying this to. Specifically visual art, this is what I was referring to as having the skill of, you need the time and practice, and practicing a long time and regularly. But as opposed to going very slow, in art, to get very good at drawing figure, they actually go very fast. They go the opposite. So sketching, I do modeling for some classes once in a while, where I'm standing in front of a room naked and people are drawing my form. And they're using it usually charcoal or pastel or pencil or graphite. And what we do in the class is we go 10 1-minute poses, 5 2-minute poses, 2 5-minute poses, and then maybe 2 15-minute poses, and then there's a break. And that's basically the first hour. If it's a 3-hour class, that's the first hour, and there's a lot of movement. People are doing everything really fast, and that's kind of like the warm-up for later on in the class. Then the second hour, we might do 2 half-hour poses, and then the last hour might be 1 full 1-hour pose. So you can see that there's that progression of going really fast to slow, which helps them when they do that final slow pose. They're already warmed up, and they, over time, learn to be more precise with that skill. But with most skills that are more tactile, drumming, most instruments, voice, martial arts, let's see if I can think of any others off the top of my head. Most of those would probably be the main ones. There might be others, but those all require breaking down a movement to precise elements and perfecting those elements at a very slow speed, because you can't perfect them when you're always practicing at a fast speed. So you practice slow and then gradually speed up. So those were just the ideas I had going through my head after hearing this guy say this about how he practiced and overcame a severe speech impediment that was not the most debilitating thing, but it was a big hurdle in his life. It was a very inspiring story, just in terms of seeing someone overcome something and start living the life they've always wanted to live. So let me know in the comments below if you've thought of anything else that this could be applied to. One example would be, I guess that another one that's coming to my mind is weightlifting. You want to learn the proper movement of, say, a deadlift or a clean and press slowly and precisely first with a lower weight before you go to a high weight and try and do it at max speed. Because if you do it without practicing the movement and getting that perfect, when you go to the extreme weight, you're going to have something slightly out of alignment, and you're going to tweak a muscle, you're going to tear something, you're going to injure yourself in some way, possibly. So yeah, in the links, comments below, let me know what you thought of this idea of how to learn skills. Mention anything you think might be applicable with this concept, and also subscribe if you haven't done that before, and like, favorite, and share the video.